Welcome back to Sustainability in the Sea,
Hello, hello.
a podcast produced and hosted by Future Swell.
For ocean people, by ocean people.
Yeah, it's me and Alex today.
And Riley. Riley's here.
Yeah, hopefully she makes herself known, but whether you're listening or watching the video, she's here. How's everyone doing? Should that be the question in the underneath? You know how you can ask questions to the listeners? How are you? Oh. How are you doing? We just finished the Whirlwind of Earth Month. And
yeah, it was wild. So much fun, though.
Yeah, we started vlogging our ocean adventures and sustainability life, and we did an Earth Day vlog.
Mm-hmm. Go check it out. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll link it below. It's Future Swell. So yeah, guys, we are Future Swell now. So produced and hosted by Future Swell.
Let's go.
All right, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about solutions.
Yeah, we really just want to start highlighting a lot of the good work that's being done.
Around the world.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Around the world for the ocean. Good stuff. Mostly stuff that we hope can be replicated.
Mm-hmm. Implemented in places we're at and you're at as well.
I mean, in a perfect scenario, you would listen to this, be like, oh, I can apply and tweak that for where I am and where I work.
I like it.
And then you could do it. So, yeah, this is Stoked on Solutions. Okay, I think we're going to just focus on 3 for this first episode.
Mm-hmm, sounds
and,
good.
You know, there'll be more of these going forward because there's no shortage of solutions to be stoked on. Which one do you want to start with first?
Let's talk about the sea turtles.
The sea turtles. Okay, so there's 7 species of sea turtles in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are endangered.
Yeah, I think all of them are at least threatened. Right?
Yeah, populations are not doing too hot, guys. It's not great. So there are a lot of reasons for this. So here in Hawaii, some of the contributing factors are sea level rise is eroding and washing away nesting beaches where sea turtles come. They go back to the beach that they were born on to lay their nests. And so, you know, if they go back and, you know, it's gone. You know, I think we saw that in the Northwesterns.
Yeah, and then there's nowhere to lay your eggs.
Yeah, and then there's obviously entanglement in fishing gear, derelict fishing gear, and recreational line. And then bycatch are the biggest things. So something that is not a huge contributing threat, but is still obviously substantial, is that in some cultures, sea turtles are hunted and eaten.
Yeah, for food.
Is it meat?
Yeah, it's the meat. Typically the green sea turtles, from what I've heard.
Oh, what? Why just them?
They have a specific taste, I guess. I don't know. I've never had them.
Interesting.
Don't plan on it.
Yeah. So I was at an event, a political event, like a week or 2 ago, and I posted about this on TikTok if you guys don't follow me there. But I met the president of Palau.
Oh, that's cool.
Casually.
And Palau is like what? Tiny nation in the middle Pacific, right?
Yeah, in the Pacific, huge diving hotspot, like one of the most beautiful places for diving in the world.
We're gonna have to go.
Yeah, definitely we have to go. And a lot of their tourism industry is driven off of people traveling there to scuba dive. Mm-hmm. So, and also a lot of biodiversity. Like I learned, like we have a handful of coral species here. They have like hundreds.
Oh, cool.
So like just really,
cool.
There's a lot of dimension underwater there. So anyway, the minister of tourism was there too. And we were just talking story, which was awesome. And he told me this incredible story that basically caused me to start this conversation with Alex and be like, we need to make a podcast about this. So he said that in Palau, it was culturally normal to have sea turtle meat on the dinner table, very common as a meal.
Wow.
And like an everyday meal, not like with shark fin soup where it's like a delicacy.
Yeah.
And he said that they obviously knew as herbivores, sea turtles helped regulate the reef and were really important for the dive industry. But just that like implementing regulations, especially related to the ocean, is extremely difficult. I mean, you knew that.
It's hard to enforce too. Like you can have all the regulations you want, but if there's not enforcement, then people will do whatever they want.
Yeah, you have to be like self-driven and self-motivated to participate in the solution, which is a good example about this story. So basically what they did, I don't think this was coordinated by the government at all, but there was a campaign that basically taught children in schools, in elementary school, about sea turtles. And the lessons that were used to teach students about sea turtles were positioned and taught in a way where sea turtles were positioned more like as a pet instead of as food. So like, what does that look like? So the campaign was called Sea Turtle is My Friend, and they all wore shirts that said Sea Turtle is my friend. And they learned about sea turtles and named sea turtles and really just got to know sea turtles, probably from a biological lens, but they're young. So like, just like learning about sea turtles.
Yeah, super fun.
Yeah, which I think this happens also with like animal agriculture too, is if you're like connected to the cow, or the cow's your pet, or the chicken's your pet, you're less likely to like want to eat it.
That makes sense.
It's whether you view the animal as a commodity or as food versus as like a sentient being, which obviously they're all sentient beings. So they did this campaign, and he said that what ended up happening is the students went home, they talked to their families about it. Their kids are the ones telling their parents, like, please don't hunt these sea turtles. And then what ended up happening, Palau has like a really robust and effective marine protected area network. It's how they, protect their resources for the dive industry and the dive economy and for the local livelihoods. And they ended up implementing for the marine protected area, they restricted hunting season, which is really a common approach to fishery management, right? And it was like, okay, you can only hunt sea turtles during this certain month of the year, which is when they're not spawning, so you're not going to impact the population, but you can still have your meat. It's a common tactic. But what they found is that by the time that they started implementing that, what he told me was that people like weren't even really hunting them because
of the campaign.
Yeah, instead of a top-down regulation and enforcement that's like, hey, the government's telling you not to hunt sea turtles, it was instead they changed the social fabric of how communities view sea turtles, and then the kids shared that message widely with their families who participate in the fishing economy. And then ultimately now, he said now in 2023, you rarely see sea turtle meat on the menu, let alone on a dinner table.
Wow, that's crazy. And it's like, it's insane how powerful like social change can be.
I'm realizing, like, as things unfold, which we'll get into later, like how do you change the social fabric of society? I have an episode on that, how to change the social fabric of the climate narrative or something with Peter, Dr. Peter Kalmus, because really ultimately it's like our perspectives around it change.
Yeah, the perspectives change, then our behaviors change. I
think we're doing a good job of that with sharks, at least in the US, or like cetacean captivity is another really good example. It's like
that one's progressed a lot over the last even 10, 15, 20 years.
And most people who are outside of marine conservation might not even have a strong opinion about this. They might just be like, oh, well, now the world doesn't support this, so I don't, because it's like a social driver.
Exactly. Yeah. People don't want to be on the outs of most things.
So one of the reasons I wanted to launch this sub-series or segment is because I'm like, okay, so how can this Palau model for sea turtles be applied to something that needs it right now?
Well, change the social fabric, which will then change behaviors.
But like, what issue is what I'm trying to say? Like, could this approach be duplicated to save a different species?
Though, like you said, sharks is a great example of, I think, happening right now as we speak. A lot of like sharks are no longer that scary narrative of they're going to eat you
in the U.S.
Yeah, and
not like. Still such a long way to go. I don't even know if I can say that.
No, it's definitely not.
Are we all like right now actively not surfing? Like,
I don't have time to surf. There.
There's been some shark interactions locally, just for context for listeners. But yeah, that's another thing. Changing the communication about things. These are interactions. They're encounters. They're not
exactly.
attacks.
It's not attacks. It's not.
Yeah, I think that
we're in their territory, their zone. We're in their waters.
Yeah, their habitat. But I think also like Project Who that focuses on that's run by Madison Stewart, that focuses on employing Balinese ship fishermen, not just in Bali, Indonesian fishermen in tourism operations where they would otherwise be fishing for sharks, but it replaces their revenue.
Yeah, so, just give them a different source of income, and it's like, oh, what's the difference?
Yes.
Just changing that social behavior.
But it would be interesting to pair that, which obviously this is a small growing program, but like to pair that with lessons about sharks in schools to kids.
To the local kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like developed obviously by a local organization.
Yeah.
Like, because then if you have, this pilot scale tourism alternative being piloted at the local port, and then you have kids saying, I like sharks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sea turtle is my friend. It doesn't get more simpler than that. Like,
yeah, it's pretty cute. Who doesn't like a good sea turtle?
And even like, don't they eat dogs in certain countries as well? It's like,
I've heard that, yeah.
Well, dogs are our friends.
Yeah.
Riley's asleep. But I think we could apply this for a lot of different things.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
All right, next solution: bottom up MPAs or sharks in Tahiti. Your choice.
I don't know how to choose.
I know. We'll get to both eventually, but only one for this episode.
Okay, I feel more educated about the Chile one, so...
All right, we're going to Chile.
We'll save the French Polynesian approach to whale watching tours for another episode. So, basically, I don't even know how to start this. I feel like I've talked about it in a few other episodes, but I I was in Robinson Crusoe, an island off the coast of Chile.
Super tiny.
800 people for like 7 weeks last year as part of a Lenovo project that implemented Wi-Fi and internet access, and it brought skilled volunteers from around the world to help work with local communities to implement how internet connection can kind of grow their programs and scale things up. And
super cool.
It was really great. I changed my life forever for sure. So I was the ocean girl, as I am, token ocean girl, and I was meeting with the fishers. And like, just so you guys know, Chile is mostly known for lobster. Mm-hmm. Best lobster I've ever had. We had lobster in Mexico one time, and I was like, I'm never gonna have lobster again. Like, I'm never gonna have lobster again.
You're spoiled for sure.
Yeah, and so they have one of the most sustainable lobster fisheries in the entire world. Mm-hmm. And they export to mainland Chile, and they also have marine protected areas around the island. This is Juan Fernandez Archipelago.
Yeah, so it's like how many islands? Like 5?
Many.
Okay.
Some have people that live there, some don't. Less. I don't know the exact. I only stayed on one, but there was a few others.
Gotcha.
And there's a very small community on Alexander Selkirk Island, less than 100 people.
Wow.
And then Robinson Crusoe's most, which were around 800 people. Mm-hmm. And that's where I lived. And so, basically, the lobster fishery has pretty standard fishery regulations, which you can add more context to since you work in management. But it's like, you can't grab the females.
Yep. Can't have females with eggs, have to be a certain size.
Size, and then certain...
There might be seasons.
So those are like the basic things for fisheries management that can help you support a population while still maybe fishing. So, but really the marine protected area is what I wanted to highlight with this story because... there's a huge, obviously, global goal to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. But a lot of these marine protected areas are being instilled by governments, right? So say like there's a lot of pressure right now to do this, and then they go to a big ocean conference and then they announce, we're protecting 20% of our waters. And it's like, well, was your protected area instilled with the consultation or even consent of the local communities that work and fish? And
that's a huge issue.
With
protected areas right now.
And terrestrial, which we are less equipped to handle or discuss, but it's like, are they just taking, like, those local communities rely on it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like, which is difficult because I know there was like a race against time to protect this 30 by 30. But
we only have so much time.
But the urgency behind it is causing governments to do what I just described, top down marine protected areas. So the government tells local communities, this is a protected area, you can't fish there. So there's problems with that we just touched on. But then there's bottom-up marine protected areas, which is what was done in Robinson Crusoe.
Ooh.
I know. So they know their resources better than anyone on mainland Chile.
It's because they're living there. They're experiencing it every day. They're the ones going out on the water.
Yeah, and they
had to take a boat to get to the plane.
Guys, it was the best. It was the best experience. So so there's two pieces to this. One is that they needed their lobster fishery, right? That's how they make their livelihoods. The second is that there's this incredible seal population, the Juan Fernandez seal. So cute, endemic, the best.
Sea lion.
Sea lion.
Thanks.
Wow, apologies.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Those Odorides represent.
Okay, stop. Okay, so basically they said, we're going to install these catch limits and the things that we just described for lobsters during these seasons. And one of the most notable things that was really inspiring about this is they said, we will never use nets, ever.
Whoa.
We're never going to use fishing nets. If left behind, it has too much bycatch. It can ghost fish, whatever. So they only use pole and line. Okay, so they just said this, right?
That's for fish, not for lobster, right?
Right. Okay. They use actually lobster traps made from like invasive wood. They actually
That's cool.
They make their traps only using the invasive wood. Anyway, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful what small communities can do. So that's the point. Is they said, okay, no nets, right? And this is socially enforced. So I didn't see a single. I was out on the water with the fishers like many times while I was there. I didn't see a single net because other fishers are holding people accountable if they were doing that. Yeah, it's a small enough community, which really is similar to the French Polynesian story that I wanted to share, which is just that like if you're in a small enough community, you're holding your peers accountable, right? So that was one piece of it. By the way, that's literally not a formalized regulation in any of the marine protected areas.
Interesting. Wow, I didn't know that.
No, it was a bottom-up community-based regulation that's instilled and enforced socially. And then the second is that they were like, all right, the Juan Fernandez sea lion, like pups in this area, we need to protect this cove. It's a cove where you take the boat from the airport to the
nice.
Other place. And they're like, we don't fish here. It's a cove. Let's just no take, fully protected area, nothing, and we'll protect the whole cove. It's literally like a playground. I've posted videos of it. It's just like a little playground nursery of all these babies, right? Because it's like, this is where they pup. This is the protected areas. This is open water. Orcas are known to pass through the areas. So it's like, okay, they're going to stay in the cove. But there was no skin off the back, livelihoods off the back by closing that, because communities are not relying on that cove for fishing in other ways. But they are reliant on healthy populations of sea lions. And so what ended up happening...
Industry, right?
For the tourism industry, but also as ecosystems that regulate the marine food chain. So the Chilean government has formalized marine protected areas in the Juan Fernandez archipelago. And they, if you look at that cove, it's a no take. Yeah. But all of these were demanded to the Chilean government by the Robinson Crusoe community, which is what makes it a bottom up instilled protected area, which takes so much more time, right? Like they were telling me like, we've been saying this forever and we've been following these rules forever, and they just formally adopted it. We'd already been doing it forever, but it's like, that's kind of what is going on.
It's crazy too that they've been doing it forever, and they've just been waiting for it to be formalized by the government.
Local communities are stewarding their own resources, and so right now they're fighting to protect this like corridor of migratory species, but they're like, we can't because it's out of our jurisdiction of EEZ, so we need it to come from the Chilean government. It needs to be top down because it's high seas territory, and they can't instill rules and regulations in that because that's foreign fleets that would be coming in.
We're gonna have to dive more into that one at another episode because that's really interesting as well.
Yeah, I feel like less educated to discuss that, but we are working with Outspoken Narrative to develop a short film about this beautiful story, and I can't wait. Hopefully that's out this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think like bottom-up approaches are the best case scenario, but they take more time. And I know we don't have time, but we need to be doing it right because there's no buy-in. You can't just police the ocean and have like, what are you going to have? Like government officials come tell, like local communities have to buy into it. That's kind of what both of those stories like speak to, is that you have to have social buy-in by the communities that are actively.
First and foremost, for sure.
Yeah. Ugh. I love them. I miss them. It was like a year ago.
It was. Just about.
Yeah.
A little bit over. All right. The third and final, I want to talk about our trip to the Galapagos in Ecuador.
Oh, yeah. We went in October.
Yeah. And so the Galapagos is a national park, part of Ecuador. And so, first of all, there's a green fee. So when all visitors who go have to pay $100.
Yeah, we paid it at the airport.
Yeah, you paid for the airport there. They're different in different places because I know Palau has one as well, and we're working on one for Hawaii at one point. And so
and for those of you listening that might not know, the Galapagos are many islands. You have to take boats and ships in between them or planes, and they're also obviously where Charles Darwin discovered, quoted the theory of evolution through the
so much
animal
biodiversity. It's crazy.
Yeah, volcanic islands.
Yeah, and the Ecuador government and the Galapagos people noticed that, and they said, "Oh, we have something special," and so they said they want to protect it. What's really cool is for that. So first of all, you pay the green fee, and then that money goes back to the environment in some way.
It goes to the national park. I believe stewards the money,
which then goes back to the environment in some way, right?
Right.
And then second of all, another thing that they do is there's it seems like millions of different things to do. There's hikes, there's snorkel spots, there's places you can kayak, there's beaches, there are all these things within all of these different islands. But what they do is they close off different activities during different times of the year. So one place isn't just trampled year round by visitors and then gets degraded.
I'm pretty sure they do this too because you can't go anywhere in the park without a naturalist.
Yeah, you're very supervised for sure. But it makes the experience that much better. One, because you have somebody who knows what they're talking about and can kind of educate you, which is cool.
Answer your questions.
Yeah, because we had a ton of questions while we went. And then two, just because it's so much more beautiful than seeing places that are trampled every single day.
Yeah. But I think because they have naturalists, and I know that ours was telling us you have to report on numbers, how many people you had. So I think that's how they're able to know oh, this island has faced pressure in the last 3 months from 1,000 people, and that's now we need to close it off. And they're on a rotating system, right? With
exactly.
What's accessible.
Yeah, and I love the structure because it's not one place getting ruined. It allows the diversity to continue. It allows the environment to kind of build itself back up.
I wonder if we went back at a different time of year, if we would have even been able to go to the places we went.
No, I bet we'd go to almost completely all new places. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. And same with the education that's placed on you because you have a naturalist with you. They're constantly reminding you of good stewardship behavior. And that's an issue that we have here in Hawaii is that if tourists are don't understand how they're negatively impacting a place, a really good example is if they step on corals because they need a break from swimming, thinking it's a rock, right? But it's when you have a naturalist there, it's not a scary enforcement thing. It's
it's an education.
He's you can't step on the corals, and they're
For this reason.
It's alive, and you're great, okay. It's just it's almost an accountability check as well.
Yeah,
which
totally.
I think is cool. So, obviously, love that visitors have to invest in the place too. I'm sure that generates so much funding for conservation projects throughout the park that are needed to offset the impacts.
Yeah, and goes I'm sure that the local the people there too get jobs and opportunities with those conservation type projects.
Yeah, Galapagonians. I remember we were talking to our naturalist. We were there for a while, and I got really close with him, and he said the tourism economy is the only jobs there are, right? And he was saying he wanted to do something else. He's a doctor, right?
Yeah, I think he's a doctor.
He's a doctor.
Part-time doctor, full-time naturalist. It's you can do what you got to do.
Because there's small populations, right? So it's how often is a doctor needed versus how much a naturalist is needed. So he was, that was funny. But I wonder how that could be replicated elsewhere as well.
I like the idea of the rotating systems. So not one place gets trampled. I love the idea of a green fee.
Well, that requires a lot of traceability, though, if you're going to be rotating regions that people you have to really know where people are at. I'm wondering if there's a limitation because of how many residents or visitors.
What if you just did a time-based? You said this time of the year, this trail is closed. This time of the year, this trail is open. So I'm thinking for hiking trails, for example, maybe in the rainy season, places that get a lot of erosion and get really muddy are closed during the rainy season. One, because it's less fun, but two, just because all those people walking on it just will cause more erosion, will cause the plants to get swept away. So something along those lines.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
I think it could be replicated here too, but certain places are. I guess we saw with Hanauma Bay. It was during COVID when there wasn't tourism. It bounced back. It definitely rebounded in a way that I'm not sure has been published yet.
There's a cool study from Molokini of the same thing. So Molokini is a small little.
It's a sunken crater.
Yeah, off Maui, and so the state did some research there during COVID. And
well, for context, boats are going out there all day, year round.
Every day there's multiple boats going out.
And you can't touch the crater, but
still
sunscreen, swimmers, boat fumes, all those things are they're definitely measurable because of how many boats are going out.
Definitely, yeah. And so yeah, just during COVID, there were a lot of large fish spotted in the area. They did a bunch of surveys of in-water surveys. And then as soon as COVID kind of let back up, they went back and did their surveys with the tourists there, and they saw that all the big fish were in the deeper waters, not in that shallow little lagoon where everyone goes.
Because if you're like unbothered, then it's protective for the big fish.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of big fish?
Alua mostly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool, huh?
Yeah. I think it was a huge opportunity for science with COVID to remove that anthropogenic impact and be able to quantify it.
Definitely, yeah. Super interesting studies have been done.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, these are just 3, you guys. I mean, the idea is ultimately we'll speak about the solutions we're familiar with from our own journeys, but also as more solutions get highlighted around the world, we want to share them with you all.
Yeah.
Because,
if you know of any, let us know and we'll dive into them.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, these solutions need to be amplified so that they can be replicated and we can protect the ocean with as much time as we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in the next episode, right?